Hello and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make fermented sauerkraut. Why fermented sauerkraut? Because it's good for your gut. 70% of our immune system is in our gut, and we need to boost our immune system now, probably more important than any time in history. But our not too distant ancestors used to ferment food to preserve it, and we've sort of lost that now with refrigeration. So we need to get back to basics, and we've got the time to do it now. So let's get started. This is going to be a lacto-fermented sauerkraut. I'm going to use red and green cabbage, and I'm going to add a little fennel. Fennel doesn't ferment very well, but it adds a lovely flavor. And the reason we're using cabbage is because cabbage leaves have their own unique bacteria which create the fermented process and add to that beautifully. You can add things like carrot, beetroot, all manner of veg, but do add cabbage because it really kicks off that good bacteria. I'm going to also add our Bristol poo chart at the end of this series. And why is that? Because fermenting sauerkraut is a good family activity. You can show your kids how to chop safely. You want to use this type of knife, not a paring knife. Show them how to chop properly and safely. And then you can invite good family discussions about gut health and good bacteria and the benefits of good bacteria. And then, talk about the reasons for good gut health. Boosting our immune system is so vitally important right now while we're still in lockdown. But then when we're released from lockdown and go back to life as, whatever new normal is going to be, we need to take responsibility for our health by boosting our frontline defense, which is our immune system. And the good bacteria is a brilliant way. And we might be, you might be over sanitizing right now with all the scare about virus germs and things. So we need to replenish some of those bacteria that are lost in that. So that's it for now. I'm going to be back in a minute. We're going to be chopping. So I cut the bottom off. Don't need that. I remove the outer leaves. We're going to use those a little bit later. And starting with this lovely head of cabbage. Cut it right down the middle. Another reason you need a good size knife is cutting that cabbage in half. And I'm going to cut it into quarters. Make it easier to handle. And then just start cutting. Now if you have a food processor, that's fine. But if you've got kids, this is a great opportunity to show them how to cut safely. So I put my finger on the side of the blade here so that I can, it's not near the bottom, it's just on the side, and I can guide the thickness of the veg. And you want it as thin as possible because we are going to sprinkle it with salt. I use pink Himalayan sea salt. That helps to break down the fibers and release the juices. So if you have very thick pieces, when you sort of work it with your hands, it's just going to take a lot more effort. So taking a little more time with chopping is going to save you work later on when you're mashing it down. And this is a good time to have those conversations. You've got kids with tummy aches. I had IBS as a child, so I always had tummy aches. And I didn't know why. And I was diagnosed with IBS when I was 15. And still it wasn't talked about. So now this is sort of getting out in the open. Has been out in the open. It's really out in the open now. So I'm going to put this in my big mixing bowl and keep chopping. So we can talk about mental health now. We can talk about gut health now. And there's so much we can do. We're not living in the dark ages where we're embarrassed to talk about these things. So talk to your kids about good bacteria. Where are good bacteria? Well, they're out in your soil. I know a lot of people are starting to plant veg, so digging in the dirt, you get dirt under your fingernails, and that's a good way to absorb good bacteria. And don't be so quick to scrub your hands clean when you've been out in the soil. Look for worms when you're digging in the soil. That's a good sign of healthy soil. And of course, I'm talking about soil that's not been sprayed with glyphosate. If you have a popular weed killer in your garden shed, this would be a good time to safely dispose of that and not use it, because glyphosate destroys our gut lining. It destroys the amino acids in our food. It destroys the minerals in our food. And that is hugely contributing to our lack of immune system to properly deal with this virus. Our bodies were meant to heal, and they will when we give them the proper tools. We've seen the planet heal already from air pollution just by reducing the number of cars and planes, and our bodies are very forgiving, just like our planet is. So let's do our part in our little corner of the world to access safe food that's not sprayed with toxins. You know, if you have weeds, you can get rid of them with that cheap white nasty table salt. You can sprinkle that on your weeds, whatever, but don't sprinkle it on your lawn. But sprinkling it on directly on the weeds, nothing will grow there again. I sort of found out the hard way, but it's true. You can also mix a solution of cheap white salt, cheap white vinegar, and a little bit of washing up liquid as a surfactant, which will take it down deeper into the root. And by weeds, I mean something that really is useless and a nuisance. I'm not talking about dandelions. I've been back garden foraging since we've been in lockdown and utilizing dandelions. I've always eaten the leaves because they're really good for regulating cholesterol. You can buy them in the markets in California, but they're treated as a nuisance in most places. But the flowers can be used as well. I've made dandelion syrup, mix it with a little apple cider vinegar for a lovely salad dressing, and then of course eating the leaves. The jagged leaves are a bit stronger, a bit more peppery, but the rounder leaves have a milder flavor, and the younger the leaves, the milder the flavor. You can add them in soup and smoothies. Dandelion leaves are loaded with vitamins and minerals and fiber. So there's a little free tip for you there. I've also found, well, nettles. I think we all know how nutritious nettles are. And I've made nettle soup. I'm going to dry some nettles out and make tea. Cleavers are still growing now. They're great for making tea. A rich source of vitamin C, which we need loads of now to build our immune system. So I'm going to speed this up now. Now I'm going to just mix the colors together. No specific way, just mix it up. I like to use a ceramic bowl because plastic just tends to, I don't know, you never know what kind of plastic you're using. You don't know what's leaching through. And you don't really want to use metal when you're adding, when you're fermenting. You want to use ceramic. Getting things like this, you can just chuck those out. Now you want to use 2 to 3% salt per weight of veg. And again, this is pink Himalayan sea salt. It's really good. You use kosher salt, but don't use the ionized version. So just sprinkle it on. A little trick here. We're going to mix this in. And I've got small hands, so I typically mix this in, leave it to sit for about an hour, and the salt will start to break down those fibers, and then it's much easier to sort of massage it all in, because we want to release a lot of juice, and then we're going to put it into this crock. It'll be amazed how much it's going to reduce down. So that's been resting and salted for about an hour. Found another one of those big things. We'll take that out. So now we're going to really get stuck in. Now some people wear plastic gloves, food safe plastic gloves, but we have bacteria, good bacteria, on the palms of our hands. Different ones on the back of our hands, but on the palms of our hands. And I like to feel things anyway, really get stuck in. So I have the fennel off to the side here because it doesn't release as much juice. So I'm going to really get stuck in and mash this down before I add the fennel. And this is also good for pounding. But I'm going to start just sort of like you're kneading bread. Just mash it down. And you can't see that, but they're already damp from the salt. They're already starting to break down a little bit. Good time to put some music on, have some good family discussions about gut health. You might take a probiotic and think I'm all right. You might think, oh, I eat yogurt, that's all right. Well, yogurt, so much, it's still good, but so much of the yogurt bacteria get destroyed by our stomach acid. And the same thing if you're taking a probiotic in the form of a capsule, even a veg cap, it's still a good amount of it is destroyed before it ever reaches where it needs to go in your gut. A time-released probiotic is good because it generally has a coating that enables it to survive the stomach acid and then actually break down in the small and large intestine where you want it to. And also be careful taking probiotics. Don't mix them up. They're generally formulated so that the bacteria are specific to that area of your body, because we've got bacteria in our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our pits. We have good bacteria all over our bodies, and they do a wonderful job of keeping us healthy. So don't over clean, don't over sterilize. But also don't mix up probiotics, because you could cancel out bacteria. They're alive, and they some work together, some work against each other. So know what you're doing. Get a reputable probiotic. I'm happy to help you with that. But get your kids out in the dirt. Now's a great time. I used to love digging in the dirt and plant things. I know lots of people are planting veg now, getting back to that. And I invite your comments to what is your new normal going to look like? What are you doing now that you've discovered or rediscovered, and that you want to carry on when we're out of lockdown? Love to know, because we like to share ideas. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? A little bit of juice there. Yeah, see, it's working. So just keep like a washerwoman washing clothes. That was a terrible thing to say, wasn't it? Anyway, so that's, you just want to keep doing that. I'm gonna show you this, and this, your hands get tired, you do some of this. Kids can do some of this. Some of the small kids with small hands, they can do that. That really helps to break it down, because we're going to release enough juice from the veg to actually submerge. Did I say that right? Release enough juice from the veg to submerge the veg. Once we put it in the crock, we're going to really pound it down some more. We want to cover it with the juice so that we now have created an anaerobic environment. In an anaerobic environment, bad bacteria and yeast cannot form. And this would be also, you know, a bit of a, maybe a science lesson for your kids that they can take back to school. Because you'll be able to lift the lid on the crock and watch. In the first week, you'll see some small bubbles form. That's a particular type of bacteria. And then, you know, the next week, you'll have different bacterias forming. You can smell the difference. You can have a little taste along the way. And, you know, really delve into it. Google fermenting process and share that with your kids. But this will set them up, especially if you have really young children. Get them tasting and liking fermented sauerkraut. And so often we get cravings for things like sugar cravings. It's not so much your taste buds saying that you want sugar. It's your gut saying, feed me sugar. Feeding the bad yeast and bad bacteria in your gut. That's where the sugar cravings come from. So you can just, you know, tell it to stop talking nonsense and start eating things that are good for you, and that will change the anatomy of your gut, and you'll start craving good things, healthy things. We, when I was growing up, everything came out of a tin or a packet. I didn't know what a fresh vegetable tasted like until I got out on my own. And they were tasted, I mean, the first green bean I tasted was so sweet and wonderful. And, you know, I just started falling in love with veg then, sadly, late in life. But, you know, I've come to appreciate them. So you can train your kids' taste buds now, build up their immune system, and, you know, you won't be so fearful of the viruses that are around us all the time. You know, our bodies have streptococcus and staphylococcus and, you know, all manner of bacteria and viruses that we're dealing with. Even cancer cells. Our bodies are dealing with cancer cells. And it's just when you're in a weakened immune state that your body succumbs to it. So never more important than now to boost your immune system. So I'm going to crack on with this, and I'll be back in just a little bit. Well, I finished massaging and tamping down all the veg. This is what we have now. I don't know if you can see that. I'll get really close. Lots of good sloshy liquid in there. So what I'm going to do now, remember we saved a couple of leaves. So we want to keep the veg from floating to the top. So I'm going to put this leaf in, squish it in there. You can break it in half if you need to. And a little bit fiddly, but we'll get it in. And keep that veg down. And then we're going to press again really, really hard. Really, really hard. You can leave it like that. If you're using a clip top jar, you'll have to do that and press it down really hard. And then we've got our stones that are, it's a circle, but you couldn't get a circle in there, could you? So we're going to push that in, really press down. And this is all going to keep the veg submerged. And you want it really tight. You really want to press hard, get all the air bubbles out. Really compact it down so no air bubbles are hiding in there. Just put that in. And really tight because I got a lot of veg in there today. I'll put the other one in, and then we're going to put the lid on. Now this has a little trough here, and this also has a little notch. Can you see that little notch? A little notch there, and there's one on the other side. So then we're going to pour water in this trough, and that's going to seal it so that the bad bacteria and stuff can't get in, but it'll allow it to breathe as it ferments. It's going to expand. So we're going to leave that. You can take the lid off. You can have a check. You'll have to take that leaf out if you want to have a test, but have a smell, and you can taste the liquid. See how it's going to taste. I like to leave mine for 4 weeks because I like a real strong sour fermentation taste, and you get more bacteria. If you're not accustomed to eating fermented veg, you can leave it for just a week, and then introduce it into your gut, and then maybe go for a stronger one next time. This is what it's going to look like when it's finished. You see that? It's all mashed down. It's all nice purple color. That's got fennel in there as well. I think I put some juniper berries in that batch. So that's what it's going to look like. And I will put that Bristol poo chart in with this, so you can print it off. It'll be a PDF. You can print it off and have some lovely family conversations. Thanks so much for watching this, and do send me any questions, and love your comments. Any other combinations that you do when you ferment. Love to have some healthy discussions. Thanks so much. Bye.